Hello and welcome to the Invent with Scratch screencast. I'm Al Swigert, and this tutorial is going to cover a frog hopping game. So you control this frog that starts in the upper left, and your goal is to get to the land on the lower right, and you have to hop one at a time onto these lily pads that are always kind of slowly moving around. So you do that by holding down the mouse and charging up how much you want to jump. So I'm going to try jumping there. Oh, ow. Missed it there. Okay, let's try this. Gonna try hopping and make it there. Oh, made it. Okay, just a little bit more. Yay! And of course, if you fall into the water, then you just kind of sink and a little ripple appears right there. So there are a few different parts to this game, but first we're going to start downloading some graphics from the Invent with Scratch website. That way we won't have to draw the frog and the lily pad and everything ourselves. So open up a web browser to inventwithscratch.com/frog. And that page will look like this, and here's all the graphics that we'll need for our game. So just go ahead and right-click on them, and then click on Save Link As, or whatever your browser says to save the file. I'm just going to save these to the desktop. So save frog, save lily, and save all of these. Next, let's start with a brand new editor. So click on Create, and the first thing we're going to do is we don't need the cat sprite that starts in each Scratch project, so right-click on the cat and select Delete. Instead, we're going to start uploading the images that we just downloaded from that inventwithscratch.com website. So click on the Upload Backdrop from File icon for the backdrop. And I'll just go to the desktop, and I'll select the background, which was that water.jpg image. And then for each of the individual sprites, I'll just click on the Upload Sprite from File button right here. So I'll just select End. And keep doing this for all of the other sprites. Okay, I'll just move the starting land right there. The ending land can just go right there. And this lily is pretty big, so I'm just going to go into the Costumes tab of the lily sprite and use this Select tool to select everything and then just shrink it down by clicking and dragging on one of these corners. Maybe just make it maybe about that big. That looks good. Maybe a little bit smaller. Okay, so there's a lot of different things that we're going to have to do for this program. The first thing we can do is start making those lily pads that just slowly wander around the top of the water. So let's go to the code for the lily, and the first thing we'll need is to go to the Brown Events category and grab this When Green Flag Clicked block. So at the very beginning of this, we're going to want to create 5 clones of this sprite. So there's a block that says Create Clone of Myself in the orange control section, and we want to run this block 5 times, so we're going to put it inside of a repeat block. So grab this repeat block, and we want to repeat 5 times, and we'll put that code inside there. So this creates 5 clones of the lily sprite. I'm going to click on the green flag and show you. So right now there's 5 clones that have just been created. You can't really see them because they're all on top of each other. It just creates the clone wherever it currently is. But if I move this sprite over, you can see the clones right there. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 of those clones. So we're going to have the clones start running their own code. If we go to the Brown Events category, there's another one of these. Oh wait, that's actually in the orange control category. There's a block that says When I Start as a Clone. And this is because the green flag is clicked and then the clones are created. So these clones won't have their own When Green Flag Clicked block right here because the green flag has already been clicked by the user. So instead, we'll have When I Start as a Clone, and this code that goes under here will run after they've been created. we don't actually need the original lily pad, so I'm just going to go to the purple look section and grab a hide block so that it hides it after creating these clones. And just so that it shows up at the beginning, I'll just add a show block to the beginning right there. So the first thing we do once we create all these clones is we want to move them around somewhere randomly on the screen. We don't want them all just in this one space right here where the original lily is. Let's grab one of these go-to XY blocks from the blue motion category, and we want the coordinates that the lily clone goes to be completely random. So let's go to the green operators section. There's a pick random 1 to 10 block. We'll have one of those for the X and one of those for the Y. And right now it says some random number 1 to 10, but we want to change that. We want to change that to be anywhere on the stage. And you can see right here the X and Y coordinates for wherever the mouse pointer is will be displayed. So if you just look right here, you can see as I move the mouse all the way to the right edge, the largest X value is 240, and then the smallest value on the left edge is negative 240. Let's just change this to negative 240 and 240. And if you look at the Y coordinates, the largest Y coordinate is 180 and the smallest is negative 180. So for the Y coordinate, I want a random number somewhere between negative 180 to 180. So now when we click on the green flag, all of these clones just randomly scatter around. We don't really want the lily clones to be all the way on the edges of the screen. We kind of want them around the center. So we could just say subtract 40, I guess add 40 to the negative numbers, but just make it so that instead of going all the way to negative 240, say for the X coordinates, it just stops somewhere between 200 and negative 200 and positive 200. We could say negative 200 there and positive 200. And we'll do the same thing for the Y coordinate. This can be negative 140, somewhere up to 140. So that ensures that the lily pads will never go somewhere on the outer edges. They'll always sort of be somewhere around here in the middle. We can click on the green flag to test that out. That's pretty good. And also, we always want the frog to be on top of the lilies. We don't want the lilies to be on top of the frog. So we're going to go to the purple look section. We can grab this go back 1 layers. And so if you imagine each of these sprites is drawn on a transparent sheet of paper, the order that the papers are in will sort of show what goes on top of what. So if we send them back a few layers, then we can put them behind everything else. And we want the lilies to be behind everything. So I'll just add a big number like 99 right there. And now we'll just add a forever loop. And inside this forever loop is just the basic behavior of the lily pads. And what we want them to do is just sort of gently and slowly move around the pond water. So in order to do that, we'll go to the blue motion category, and we'll just have them point in some random direction that they'll start moving in. So grab this point and direction block, and instead of a single typed in direction, we're going to go to the green operator section and grab another pick random 1 to 10 block. And the direction that these lilies can show up in, here I'll grab a show block and just put it off here so I can double click that, so that you can see it. Right now, this lily is pointing at 90 degrees, and you can see we can rotate that around, but the number of degrees starts at the smallest at negative 180 at the very bottom, and it starts increasing as it goes around clockwise until finally it's at positive 180 back at the bottom again. So this random number that we want for the degree direction that it's pointing into can be anywhere between negative 180 and 180. So that'll have the lily pointing in a certain direction, and then we'll just have it slowly move in that random direction. So we just want it to move slowly, so go to the blue motion category, grab this move 10 steps block. To have it move slowly, we'll just enter a small number here, like 1. But we want it to move several times at this slow speed of 1 step per move. So I'm going to go to the orange control section and grab this repeat block, and then have this move maybe about 30 steps each time. So it runs this move 1 step block 30 times. Let's go ahead and see what this looks like. Click on the green flag. And that's pretty good. So there are some things we don't like about this. One, it looks sort of unnatural that these are constantly moving and they all change direction at the same time. And they're also just drastically changing the direction that they're pointing in. That sort of makes them look more like animals than plants. So I'm going to stop that, and I'm going to set the rotation style of the lily to this dot so that it's fixed. So I'll double click on the show block so that you can see what it looks like. So in the all-around rotation style, the picture of the sprite that's displayed on the screen changes as you rotate its direction. But you can also set it to just left-right, so that way it'll only be facing to the left or to the right, depending on its direction setting. And then if you select on the fixed dot, it will just stay completely still no matter what direction it's facing. And that's what we want for these lily pads. So let's click on the green flag. Yeah, okay, that looks a little bit better. It's kind of weird that they're constantly moving though. So let's go ahead and add a small weight. Now, that looks a little bit better, but it's still kind of weird that they're all moving at the same time. We want them to move at different times. So maybe we could just set this up, add some more randomness to it. So instead of always repeating 30 times, let's get a pick random block. And just say it'll move anywhere between 10 and 40 times. That's kind of good. They're still sort of moving all at the same time though. So maybe adding a random block right here. So it's either 1 or 2 seconds. That kind of looks a little bit better. We can make this even more precise though. So click on the stop sign. And the problem with this wait block right here is that pick random 1 to 2 will always return either 1 or 2 as the number of seconds we want to wait. And that's a little heavy-handed. We want it to actually be fractions of a second, but we can't get that from this pick random block. But there is a way that we can work around that. I'm going to grab a second one of these pick random 1 to 10 and take this out. So what we could have instead of pick random 1 to 2 is have pick random 10 to 20 and then divide that by 10. So while this block only returns 1 or 2, this block will return any number from 10 to 20 for this part and then divide that by 10. So this could return 10 or 11 or 12, and then when that's divided by 10, 10 divided by 10 is 1.0, whereas 11 divided by 10 would be 1.1, or 12 divided by 10 would be 1.2. So this can actually return fractions of a second. So anywhere from 1.0 to 2.0. So that way, it'd be possible for this to actually wait 1.7 seconds, say. And that'll produce a much more realistic looking pause, instead of everything moving sort of on the second. Yeah, that looks a lot better. Just calmly moving around at random. And that's all we need for the lilies code. Let's go back here. Let's go back to the frog code right now. Currently, we're going to go to the brown event section, get this when green flag is clicked. And at the very beginning of the game, we want the frog to start off right here. We don't want the frog to start off sort of right in the middle of the water and instantly have a game over. So let's move right here. We'll need a go-to block from the motion category. You can see the X and Y coordinates of the frog sprite on the stage here in the upper right. So we'll want to set the x to -222 and the y to 156. So go to the blue motion category, and the go to block will automatically have those numbers set for us. So that's kind of handy. We'll just move the Another thing is we also want the frog to always be on top of the other sprites. So go to the purple looks category, and just like we had the lilies go back several layers, we want the frog sprite to go to the very front. And also, some more setup that we have, when the frog hops into the water and disappears, it'll have a hide block somewhere. So at the very start of the game, we need to re-show it. So grab a show block to put right there. Also, you can tell when we're running the original game, whenever the frog jumps, the frog increases in size slightly, so it looks like the frog is jumping upwards and sort of closer to the camera. So the size could be greater than 100%. So at the very start of the game, we want to set the size back to 100%, the original normal size. Okay, so let's grab a forever loop from the orange control section. And inside, let's think about what this frog does. So the frog, first of all, sort of points in the same direction that we move the mouse pointer to. So we're going to need to go to the blue motion category and grab this point towards block. We'll click on the black triangle to set it to mouse pointer. So let's test that out. Green flag. Yeah, perfect. This is how we'll be able to aim the frog around. Next, let's add some code that detects when the frog is somewhere over the water. I mean, technically, the frog is always over the water because the stage backdrop covers the entire stage. So really what we want to know is whenever the frog is not on the starting land area or the ending land area, or any of these lily sprites that have shown up. So right here, the frog's in the water, but right here, the frog would be on a lily. So if the frog's in the water, we'll have it broadcast a sort of ripple message that will cause the game to be over and have this water ripple appear. So first we need to figure out what exactly that if block needs to have. So let's see. We'll have an if block right here. And those three things that we wanted to check for was, so it has to be touching the starting land. And go to this light blue sensing category, grab another touching block, and so if it's touching the starting land, the frog is safe. And if it's touching the end land, then the frog is also safe right here. Or if it's touching one of the lilies, then the frog will also be safe. And this counts for touching either the original lily sprite or any of its clones. But we can't fit all of these inside this one hexagon slot for the if blocks. We need to combine them together. So we can grab this operator section, grab this AND block. We're going to need a second one of these so that we have 3 spots for all 3 of these. Of course, this if block isn't detecting if the frog is safely on land or on a lily, it's detecting if it's on the water. So we need to actually change this by adding nots. So if it's not touching the starting land, and not touching the end land, and not touching the lily, then we know the frog is somewhere over the water and should drop into the water. So we'll just combine all of those together. And then put it inside this if block. We can read this off as, so this code needs to run if the frog is on the water and not on any of these lands or lily pads. So if the frog is not touching the start or not touching the end and not touching the lily, then the frog is going to sink into the water. So the first thing we'll do is hide the frog. And then we'll also just have the ripple effect play its animation. So we're going to need to paint a new sprite for that first. So click on this paintbrush button that says Paint New Sprite. And the ripple effect will be really simple. First, let's click on Convert to Vector. And we just need to draw some blue circles and make them kind of small. So maybe this first circle is like this. There's another circle around it, and maybe a third circle. And let's click on the info panel and rename this to ripple. So whenever the frog falls into the water, the frog will hide itself, and then this ripple sprite will appear there and show sort of water ripples as the frog is fallen into the water. So in order to cause the frog sprite's code to start running code in the ripple sprite, we'll need to broadcast an event. So go to the brown events category and grab this broadcast message 1 block. The message we want to broadcast will actually be a new message, and we'll just say show ripple. And then since the frog doesn't have anything to do after broadcasting that ripple and hiding itself, we'll just have it stop itself. So go to the orange control section, grab this stop all block, and just put it right there after broadcast ripple. Now stop all will stop the entire program in all sprites. We just want to stop this frog sprite, so click on the black triangle and select this script. So let's test this out. We'll click on the green flag, and we'll just pick up the frog and move it. Oh, it's on the lily, so it's safe. It's on the lily, so it's safe. It's on the land, so it's safe. But once we let go of it somewhere on the water, then it will disappear and hide itself and broadcast this show ripple. Now the ripple sprite hasn't done anything because we haven't added any code to it yet. So let's do that right now. I'm going to stop this program and go to the brown events category. Instead of when green flag is clicked, we'll grab this when I receive the show ripple broadcast. And the code for this ripple appearing is first, we want the ripple to go wherever the frog landed in the water. And then we'll have this ripple hide itself at the very start of the program. So actually do grab one of these when green flag is clicked. And we just want it to hide itself at the very start of the program. So grab a hide block and just have it hide itself. So when it receives the show ripple to show itself, we're going to want to add a show block. But even before then, we want it to go wherever the frog was. So go to the dark blue motion category and grab this go to block. And instead of putting it at the end, go ahead and put it above the show block. And click on the black triangle to change it to frog. We want it to be in front of the frog and on top of the lilies and everything that's around it. So go back to the purple looks category and grab that go to front block towards the bottom here. The ripple can do a little animation, which you can see in the original game right here. It starts off small and then just slowly expanded. You can see that again. So to get that effect, we just want to increase the size. And actually, we'll want to increase the size several times so that it shows it as slowly increasing and getting bigger and bigger. So we're going to go to the orange control category and grab one of these repeat blocks. So this might be too much. Let's just have it increase in size by 5 each time and then have it do that 10 times. And then afterwards, the ripple itself will hide. So we'll go to the looks category, grab this hide block, and since the frog has fallen into the water now, we'll just have the entire program stop. So go to the orange control category and grab that stop all block, and this will end the entire game. Now because we're changing the size here, at the very start of the program, we'll want to reset the size back to 100%, its normal size. So go to the purple looks category and grab this set size to 100%. So let's test this out. Click on the green flag, and the frog looks at the mouse pointer. We'll just have to pick up the frog and then drop it into the water. That was pretty nice. You can see that expanding ripple effect, and then it shuts down the program. So that's exactly what we want to have happen. So whenever the frog is not touching the starting or ending land sections, and it's also not touching the lily pad, then we know that the frog has fallen into the water. So we hide the frog, we broadcast this show ripple message, which causes this code to run under here when I receive show ripple. And that makes the ripple go to the frog, go to the front and show itself, and then do that little expanding animation by increasing the size by 10 times, and then it'll hide itself and then shut down the program. So there's one small problem that we need to address, and I'll show you. Let's click on the green flag. So remember, the frog is safe as long as the frog is touching the land here, or it's on one of the lily pads. But the problem is, these lily pads are still moving around, whereas the frog is just staying put. And if the lily pad moves far enough away, then the frog will suddenly be dropped into the water. So we want these lily pads to stop moving if they're touching the frog. So let's go to the lily pad code, and here, this code inside the forever loop is what causes the lily pads to move around. We only want this code to run if the lily pad isn't touching the frog. So I'm going to move this off to the side for a bit. Go to the control section and grab this if block and say if the lily pad sprites or the clones are not touching the frog. So I'm going to need a not block from the green operator section. And then from the light blue sensing section, grab this touching block and click the black triangle to set that to frog. So only move around if the sprite is not touching the frog. Then we'll run all this code that causes that gentle moving around. So let's test that out. Click on the green flag and pick up the frog and move it onto one of these lilies. So you can see they're all moving, but then when I set this frog down on this lily pad, all of the other lilies are still moving because they're not touching the frog. Whereas this one is touching the frog, so it's just going to skip this if block code. So really it's just doing a forever loop of nothing because this condition isn't true for this lily pad, so it's not moving around. So now let's add the code that lets the frog jump. And to do that, let's go back to the original game. You can see that there's sort of this power meter right here, and a red dot that grows and grows in size the longer I hold down the mouse button. And the longer I hold down the mouse button, the bigger the jump the frog does. So like a little jump like that, whereas a big jump is when I hold down the mouse like that. So we're going to have to create a new sprite for that red dot that appears. So click on the paintbrush button that says Paint New Sprite. And I'm going to go to vector mode. And I just need to draw a red dot. So I'll click on the circle tool, make it a red color, also make it filled in and not just the outline. So I'll just start drawing maybe right here. Here's a little trick. If you hold down the shift key, Scratch will automatically draw a perfect circle. So that's really handy. So maybe something about that big. So I'm going to set the costume center back to the very center of the circle. It doesn't have to be perfect, but get it as close as you can. So this is the circle that will appear underneath the frog and then start growing in size the longer you hold down the mouse button. So let's think about what exactly this power dot does. In fact, I'm going to open the info panel and rename it to power dot. So let's go to the brown events category. When the game first starts, we don't want this dot just appearing on the screen. So let's go to the purple look section and hide it. And then afterwards, we'll have a forever loop from the orange control section. And this power dot just checks to see if the player is holding down the mouse button. So we're going to need an if block. And from the light blue sensing category, we can grab this block that says mouse down. So if the player is holding the mouse down, then, let's think about what we want to have happen here. Well, first, we want this power dot to appear underneath the frog sprite. So we're going to need to go to the dark blue motion category and grab this go to block. And click on the black triangle to set it to frog. So it goes to the frog, and it starts expanding in size, which means that right here we need to reset it back to its original size of 100%. So go to the purple look section, and scroll down here, grab this set size to 100%. And also, normally this block is hidden. In fact, we hide it at the very beginning of the game. So we'll need to show this also. And also, we're going to need a variable that keeps track of its power level. So go to the data section and click on make a variable. And I'll show you how the variable is used in this program later on. But for right now, just make a new variable. Let's just call it power and make it for all sprites and click OK. We can just move this over here. And if you double click on this variable display right here, it's kind of nice. Scratch will give you different presentations. So that's without the name and just the value. And this is with the name and the value, but also this little slider bar, which is kind of handy. So this variable will keep track of how powerful of a jump that the frog needs to make. So the very start of a jump, or start of charging it up, we're going to set power to 0. We want this giant dot to sort of become bigger and bigger and bigger, and also increase the value that's inside this power variable. So we're going to need to have some sort of loop that constantly does that for as long as the mouse button is being held down. So let's think about the code. Need to go to the orange data section, change power, just increase it by 5 each time, but then also increase the size. So go to the purple look section and change size, and maybe also make this by 5. We want to keep running this code over and over in a loop as long as the mouse button is being held down. So if you go to the orange control category, there's a loop towards the bottom here that says repeat until. You don't want the repeat 10 loop block. You want this one that says repeat until, because this has a hexagon-shaped socket in it that we can put a little condition in. So we want this to repeat until the mouse is no longer being held down. So sort of the opposite of mouse down. So go to the green operator section, grab this not block, and put it in there. And then go to the light blue sensing section, and then grab the mouse down block. So keep repeating this code that increases the size and also the power variable until the player is no longer holding down the mouse button. So we can put that underneath here. Make sure it's inside of this if block. And so once the player lets go of the mouse, then we'll just have this dot hide itself, and we'll broadcast a message telling the frog to do a jump. So go to the purple looks category, grab a hide block, and put it after the repeat until. Make sure that all of this is inside that if block. And then go to the brown events category. We'll have this broadcast and wait block. And we'll make this a new message. Click on the black triangle and then on new message. And we'll just say jump. And so for the frog sprite, we'll add a block here that says when I receive jump, and this code will perform the frog jump for us. But let's go back to the power dot real quick. And let's test this out actually. Click on the green flag. That's kind of nice. So I'm holding down, whoa. That's actually kind of expanding really quickly. In fact, a little too quickly. Let's go ahead and go to the orange control section. Stop that and grab this wait 1 second block and add it inside that loop. 1 second is too much, but we just want a tiny little bit of wait. So let's make it 0.1, so it's 1/10 of a second each time it's looping around. So now when we click on the green flag, yeah, it's a lot slower at growing in size. We also don't want the user just to be able to constantly hold down the mouse button and make a super jump, because then the frog would move from the starting point to the ending point in one jump. So we're going to have to put some sort of limit on it. So go back to the power dot code, and let's change this so that this will repeat until either the player has stopped holding down the mouse, so the mouse is not being held down, or if the power level is greater than, I don't know, say 40. So we'll need one of these blocks. So if the power level is greater than 40, so go to the orange data section for a power block. So if the value in power is greater than 40, then, well, we want both this block and this block inside this repeat until. So we're going to have to combine them together with an OR block. So go to the operator section and grab this OR block. So we'll keep growing in size and repeat doing that until the user is not holding down the mouse or until the power variable is greater than 40. So if either of these things becomes true, then we stop looping and continue on just to hide and then broadcast jump. So the nice thing about this, there's also another small problem. When I click on the green flag to begin the game, I'm holding down the mouse button when I'm clicking this green flag. Scratch is pretty quick to pick up on that, so I'm going to add a small delay from the orange control section. Just grab this wait 1 second and put it after the hide, but before the forever loop. So that way when the user clicks on the green flag, clicking down on the mouse button to click on the green flag won't cause the frog to do a jump. So keep an eye on the power meter right here. As I hold down the mouse button, you can see once it reached some value greater than 40, once it hit 45, it suddenly stopped, which is exactly what we want. So I could either let go of the mouse button, or if I keep holding it down, it'll eventually stop itself anyway once it gets above 40. So now we just have to implement the code for this jump broadcast. Let's go to the frog's code. First of all, we're going to need code to do two different things depending on if the frog is jumping or if the frog is just standing still currently. And we can use a variable to keep track of which is doing which. So go to the orange data section and click on make a variable. We'll call this variable jumping and make it for all sprites. So at the very start of the game, we just want to set the jumping variable to no, because the frog isn't jumping at the very beginning of the game. It's just sitting there on this piece of land. So grab this set jumping and go ahead and just add it to all this other code that runs before the forever loop, but after the green flag is clicked. We'll just set jumping to no. And then, while the frog is jumping, this forever loop is still running, so it's still going to be, the frog is still going to be pointed towards the mouse. It's still going to be checking if it's touching the land or the lily, or if it's fallen into the water. Let me show the lily pad real quick. This is kind of a problem because, so if the frog jumps from here to here, there's going to be a part where it's in between and over the water, but we don't want that to say, oh, the frog should fall into the water, because the frog is jumping. So we need this code to only run if the frog is not jumping. So if the frog is landed in the water, then it will fall in and the ripple will appear. But if it's just going over while in mid-jump, technically it's not, when it's right here at the height of its jump, it's not touching the land or any of the lily pads, so the code right here says, oh, well, we should hide the frog and broadcast that ripple and end the game. So we'll use this jump variable, this jumping variable, to tell the difference between that. So I'm going to move this down. I'm going to add another if block. We'll just take all of this code out that normally runs, and we'll say that code should only run if the frog is not jumping. So that is if the jumping variable is set to no. So go to the operators section, grab one of these equal blocks, then grab the jumping variable from the orange data section. So if the frog jumping equals no, then it's possible that the frog can fall into the water. And the frog should also be pointed towards the mouse pointer while it's landed, while it's not jumping. Remember, this code right here will handle the jump broadcast, which is broadcasted after the user has let go of the mouse button or the power level is increased beyond 40. And that causes the frog to do all the jumping code. So here we want to set jumping to yes, because at this point the frog is now jumping. I'm going to move this over to the side. And then at the very end of this code, we want to have jumping set back to no. That way this code that checks if the frog should fall into the water or not will then start running. And also, whenever the frog is jumping, we want it to make it look like it's getting closer to the player, sort of that it's jumping up, because this is sort of a top-down view. So let's go to the looks category, and we can just sort of make it look like it's jumping upwards towards the camera by changing its size by, say, I don't know, 25. And then, of course, once it lands back down, we'll want to change it back to its normal size. So grab another change size by block, change its size by -25. And meanwhile, we want this frog to be moving in whatever direction it's pointed at. And also, the larger this power variable is, the longer the jump should be. So if you notice back on the original game, the frog doesn't move at a constant speed. At the start of the jump, the frog is moving really fast, and then the frog kind of slows down until it lands. So you can see what I mean. Right there, when it landed, it slowed down to a halt. It didn't just move at the same speed each time. You can also see the frog got a little bit bigger as it was jumping up. So in order to do that, we're going to need this move 10 steps block from the dark blue motion category. And we don't want it to always just move 10 steps. We want to move a larger number of steps if the power variable is set to a larger number. So we could just say move power steps. Then we also want it to start slowing down, so we would want to change that power variable. And let's change power by, say, -5. And we'll have this in a sort of loop right here, so that it keeps moving by power number of steps. So if power was, say, 45, this will move 45 steps. And then change power by -5, so that the next time we move power steps, it will be, 45 minus 5 is 40, so then it'll just move 40 steps instead of 45 steps. And then the next time it'll be 35 steps. We want to keep running this code until power is back down to 0. So we're going to go to the orange control section, and we'll use that repeat until block again. So put this here, put this code inside, and then snap that into place. So we want this code that keeps moving the frog forward by power number of steps and then decreasing the power variable to keep looping and repeating until power is less than 0. So let's go to the green operator section. We can grab this less than block. We'll need a power block from the orange data section. So keep repeating until power is less than 0. So let's test this out. Click on the green flag. So now the frog is pointing around. Whoops. Try that again. So now the frog is looking and pointing at whatever direction that the arrow pointer is, so we can control the frog's direction like that. And it's safe, even though this if loop is currently being checked, because jumping is set to no. You can see that right here, jumping equals no. But it's safe because it's touching this starting land sprite. So this code right here isn't running. So now let's hold down the mouse button and then jump. Oh, okay, missed that. One more time. Nope. Fourth time is the charm. Okay, landed. So that was nice. You can see you had to have a quick eye, but when it received that jumps broadcast from the power dot sprite, it set the jumping variable to yes, so this code is no longer being checked. And then, whatever the power level was, it would keep repeating these blocks that would move power number of steps and then decreasing the power variable until finally power was less than 0. So that's why power is at -5 once it stopped. And then it just returned the size back to normal and set jumping back to no. And that's the entire game. So we have all of the code that handles the frog moving around, and you can aim the frog. You have the lilies gently moving around the water, and they won't move as long as they're touching the frog. That way the lilies won't move out from under the frog. So let's add some code so that the frog sprite will automatically win as soon as it's touching the end land part. So go to the frog's code, Inside this code block, let's set an if block to see if it's touching the ending land part. So if, and then light blue sensing for touching. If it's touching the end, then, I don't know, we can just have the frog say yay for a couple seconds. So purple look section has a block that says say hello for 2 seconds. We'll just have it say yay, and then we'll have it end the program with this stop all block. Oh, put this right after the yay. Okay, let's test this out. Click on the green flag, and let's see if the frog can make it. You know, I think I'll just pick up the frog right here and move it over there. Oh, yay! Oh, and the frog also jumped. I guess I'll have to actually win this game the proper way without cheating. Okay. Little hops. Get a little bit closer. Okay. And now... Oh, actually made it. Okay, good. Now make it to this one. Oh, still technically on it. That frog is still touching that lily. Oh, and it just barely made it, so it said yay, and now it ended the game. So that's the entire frog hopping game. You can see we had a whole bunch of different sprites. We had this nice little mechanic of holding down the mouse button that would slowly increase this power variable value, and that would dictate how much of a jump we would make. And as soon as the frog gets to the end, the frog just says yay and is really happy. If you have any questions, feel free to leave a question in the comments section or email me, but thanks for watching this video.